Welcome to Le Grande Bouffe.
The Big Feast.
With myself, Cole Smithey, and my co-host, Mike Lacy. Hello, Mike.
Hey, what's going on, Cole?
Good. I see that you've brought some delicious beer. Ostensibly delicious.
We switched it up. I brought the beer this time. Normally, you've brought every single beer. I've never brought a beer.
That's right. I kind of like it. I think we should switch back and forth bringing the beer.
Yeah, we should do that. We should, maybe one of us picks the movie and the other one picks
The beer.
The beer, and we see how they fit together.
Okay.
I like that. Yeah, try to be serendipitous about it.
All right. So I'm going to let you introduce what beer we're drinking.
We're drinking the Transmitter Brewing Pale Ale, and I think it's called the 01. The branding's awesome, but I'm not entirely sure if that's the name of the beer right there. But it's got some great graphic design on it. I like it a lot.
It's a big bottle.
It's a big bottle. It's the size of a wine bottle.
Yeah.
750 milliliters.
Yeah.
And it's got all kinds of. It's 5.6 ABV. It tells you the temperature to keep it at.
What temperature is that?
42 degrees. I'm assuming Fahrenheit.
Mm-hmm.
And let's check this out.
This is not a transparent beer. If you were looking at it and I look at the bottom. There's sediment at the bottom. It's almost a farm style beer. Also known as a cat pee beer.
Cat pee beer.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my mic sounds weird. Am I talking to it weird? How's that? Do you like that? Is that better?
That sounds a little better.
Is that a little better?
Yeah, for once, mine sounds a lot better than yours.
Yeah.
I'm Hillary. You're Donald.
There's something wrong with the mic.
There is something wrong with your mic.
There was something wrong with my mic. I guess that was my Donald impression. I don't know what that was. How do you like it? I think that comparing to like kind of a farm style.
It's a little funky.
You know what? What if do I need to twist it? How's that? No? That's not any better.
There you go.
Behind the scenes look. All right, that's my voice.
It's maybe crank up the volume on it a little pinch. So the beer always well received, it says, and I'm curious. New York Transmitter Brewing. It's been around since 2012. I'm wondering the connection between this beer and Hypernormalization.
HyperNormalization by the great Adam Curtis. Wait, I didn't say that much about this beer. It's not too bitter. It's got some nice like seasonal notes to it. You know, it's a little wintry,
A little autumnal.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of this style of beer, as you know. I pretty much stick to IPAs, and I can go for stouts and things. But this is good. It would go good with some blue cheese, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it's the India Pale Ale is what it gets real hoppy, right?
Yeah, and this is just a pale ale with other stuff. Generously hopped with El Dorado, Jarilo, I don't know what that is, and Peco hops.
You think it's Spanish?
It's fermented, and it's fermented with a dry but fruity Abbey yeast. So it's got a lot of stuff in the brew.
Yeah, this would be great for a picnic. I agree about your cheese comment. Just like chilling out with some of those like weird shaped crackers that fall apart really easily, and like if you try to spread it, they break. But that you feel fancy and like kind of romantic eating them.
Everybody wants to feel fancy.
Yeah, you want to feel fancy with real breakable crackers.
All right, so tell me how this beer connects to Hypernormalization. I'm curious.
Well, I like that it's transmitting something out there. It's kind of breaking through the airwaves and also sort of intoxicating you with it. And whether it's Adam Curtis or who he's commenting on, is certainly talking about media, the transmission of information, and it's intoxicating.
I like it.
It's intoxicating components.
Well, works for me. Well, I think we're finally really paying off on our motto, which is to copiously consume international politics and culture through the prism of a single film and a different craft beer every week. So this time we're gonna spelunk into the belly of the beast of cultural, eco-corporate politics.
Yo, this is on brand, Adam Curtis. I love Adam Curtis. The first movie I saw that he made is his BBC doc called The Power of Nightmares.
Power of Nightmares, which I saw at the Cannes Film Festival many moons ago, whenever that movie came out. I guess it was early 2000s.
It was
not long after 9/11.
Like 2004, maybe.
Yeah.
Real quick history on my seeing it, and I think it kind of gets to the heart of what I dig about Adam Curtis, is I went to this very small, weird, esoteric school for college. And I was wondering towards...
What school?
It's called St. John's College in Annapolis, Maryland. It's a great books program where you just study like the Western classics. And I was wondering towards graduating, like, what the hell is the point of having a degree like this? Has anyone ever like affected the world that was interested in this? And this movie gave me a kind
Power of Nightmares.
The Power of Nightmares, his earlier film, gave me a little backstory on this guy, Leo Strauss, who taught at U Chicago, who inspired people who eventually planned the War on Terror. And earlier than that, they used the evangelical voters to vote for the first time to put Reagan in the White House with the moral majority.
Right.
And Leo Strauss was a guest lecturer for years at my school, and in fact, he died on our quad and is buried in the cemetery in Annapolis.
Oh, wow.
And many people are active students of him, and I'm going to get like hate mail and you go girls from a lot of people I know from there for even talking about him in this light. But it's great because it contextualized just kind of the bizarre, seemingly uneventful lives that might be in academia or like business. Adam Curtis is really great at narrativizing it. He's great at like bringing it to life and connecting it with stuff that you actually give a shit about.
Well, and he's very incendiary. I mean, I came away from The Power of Nightmares. The one big thing that I came away from that film knowing was that there was no such thing as Al-Qaeda before the CIA invented that.
That's a big takeaway. That's a big takeaway, and it's really crazy to think.
And he even calls it Al-Faqa in the movie, and that always stuck with me too. Like anytime you hear Al-Qaeda, as they used to call it, and then they were, for a while the media was calling it Al-Qaeda. They kept screwing around with the pronunciation until it finally became Al-Qaeda. So, and now you never hear anything about Al-Qaeda, which I think is bizarre. All of a sudden, ISIS just completely usurped Al-Qaeda.
Well, it's 2.0.
Like, how did that happen?
They took it to the next level.
That's what happened. That is so funky. I mean, that doesn't smell right in anybody's camp.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't like, not to like deviate towards like what The Power of Nightmares is about, but to just kind of pivot using the way that it's talking about PR and disinformation. This film is sort of, I consider this maybe one of the sort of, I don't know if I like it the most of any of his films. I believe I've seen all of them, but it definitely hits pretty much every different major theme of all of his movies.
Well, this is the second Adam Curtis film that I've seen, and I have to say I have some problems with it. And so I want to talk about how he sets it up, and then I'll get into a few kind of overview criticisms, and then we can dig in. But his premise, what he says right out of the gate, is, quote, "Extraordinary events keep happening that undermine the stability of our world. Suicide bombs, waves of refugees, Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, even Brexit." Why even Brexit anyway? Yet those in control seem unable to deal with it. No one has any vision of a different or a better kind of future. And then he goes on to slam musicians and artists of the 70s, radicals, 60s radicals, punk musicians became part of the problem because they had retreated into the make-believe world that gave dark forces free reign. Well, I mean, all art and music it's an escapist realm. I mean, I think I have a lot of problems with this premise.
Continue on the. Do you want to keep going on the premise and then?
Here's the thing that I really have a problem with the premise is that he says no one has any vision of a different or better kind of future. You cannot say that. That's wrong. I mean, you're acting like, I mean, there's so many people who do have ideas about how to fix things, about how to fix these things. Bill Nye the Science Guy. I mean, seriously. I mean, you laugh, but there's a thing called the Solutions Project, and I highly recommend anybody to type in the Solutions Project, which talks about the way the world can transition to 100% clean, renewable energy like today.
So here's what I'll say about Adam Curtis is I think he's a master of rhetoric. And what's interesting about watching his documentaries and what's so different than virtually any documentary out there, or at least documentaries worth watching. And I'll say his documentaries are worth watching, but what's different about other documentaries worth watching is he just narrates straight at the viewer with nothing but his I find it usually like a well-informed, but it's just opinions. And he is creating a narrative of, in this movie, 50 years across different countries in different fields.
Hey, from a history lesson standpoint, I think it's great, and I really want to talk about Gaddafi because that to me is the most interesting.
Oh my god, I didn't know shit about Gaddafi, and that was amazing.
And the way that the U.S. used him as their puppet. I mean, that to me is what this movie is all about. And I feel like at 2.5 hours that the film is too long. I think that I'm just going to go through the categories, how he breaks everything down, and then we can pick out what we wanted to talk about. But, he breaks the movie into these chapters. So you've got 1975, and that's where he's discussing the fiscal crisis in New York City and really how the banks took control of culture and society in this one moment when New York owed the banks all this money, and they kept cutting deals, and finally this day came when the bank said, "We're not giving you any more money because we don't believe you'll ever pay us back."
To jump onto that, that's kind of a trope of how he tells stories. Is he will takes an exact day in New York City where the banks did not want to buy the bonds of New York and makes this sort of a very meaningful.
He connects that to the spider web of global economic politics.
Right, and like you may assume that this is happening all over. There's a transition of power between civic governments and corporate interests. And you can also argue that's like, was there ever a distinction? But at least the thread of his argument, and it's fascinating because it's the most thesis heavy you can find any documentary now. Like he's writing, these are essays in essence.
Right. Yeah. He's pretty much written a book and he's reading it to you.
Right.
So I'm just gonna run through the skeleton of the thing, and then we can come back. So we got 1975. Next chapter, the human bomb. Next, altered states. Then, cyberspace as a parallel world. Acid flashback. The kernel. The truth is out there. Perception management. Managed outcomes. A cautionary tale, and a world without power.
So yeah. So each of those segments is spending about 30 minutes, 20 minutes on something that he's previously dedicated, other 2.5, 3 hour, even 5 hour movies on. And so it's so kind of hodgepodged together here, and you hear a lot of the same themes that he's done previously. But I like hearing your perspective that you just kind of feel like it's just kind of like lumped together with these sort of narrative through lines that are trying to make some argument that, like, how do you feel about all of those subjects? It's not even clear what exactly they're about just by reading that, but it includes suicide bombing.
Right.
There's a segment on the overprescription of psychoactive drugs. There's stuff on
psychotropic drugs.
Drugs.
Well, but here's the other thing too: is that for a movie called Hypernormalization, I needed more of what that is, and I'm just going to give you my paraphrasing of what I came away from the movie thinking that hypernormalization is, which is this thing where there's so much disinformation that you can never tell the truth from fiction because we're all inundated so much all the time with truth and diametric lies, so that Donald Trump's a perfect example. 90% of what Donald Trump says is true. The election is rigged. Well, yeah, of course we know the election's rigged. I mean, it's been rigged every election in this country, certainly since George Bush
But he's not
in 2000. It's,
But his reason for why it's rigged and what he means by that is not the truth. To take that example, like he thinks that there's foreigners voting in there. No, it's rigged because you can't get on the ballot.
Right,
for the most part.
Right, it's electorally. It's not voter rigged. It's electorally rigged.
Yeah, it's rigged because
the electoral college
ID
right
laws.
there is enough to say that
It's rigged because it's designed to be a distance elected republic, and so the wrong thing seemingly could never happen. According to what the parties would want, but. Yeah, I mean, I think hypernormalization, I agree, it's like really that concept is a small part of this movie, but I think that's where we could like glean the most interesting stuff about what's going on right now in our lives. And here's what I love about this movie is it's one of the first things I've seen that is trying to take the concept of whatever's happening with Donald Trump, whatever's happening with our inability to all view the same universe and to be sitting next to people on the train, and because of what they're listening to in their headphones and what they're reading, they have an entirely different world that they live in, which is as equally valid. And to put it in a context that's broader than just the way that we're seeing it right now, but he's speaking about it in a retrospective way, attempting to gain distance. There's this like thing in philosophy where they say that the owl of Athena takes flight at dusk, meaning that Athena, the goddess of wisdom, she can't really tell you, philosophy can't tell you what's going on until that shit's already over.
Right.
And he's on, I feel like, the cutting edge of people that I'm paying attention to that's really giving me any sort of context.
I'm not saying that he doesn't have a lot to offer. I'm just saying that I have some real problems with the presentation. He repeatedly says how, because of these institutions and people who don't want to face reality, they want to simplify reality. They don't want to address the complexities of the world, that they're reducing it all to, these very simple tropes. Well, that's not enough for me. You got to tell me what these complexities are. If it's really so complex, and also he doesn't tie in overpopulation, which is a huge part of all of this mess when you're talking about the refugees and climate change and how all of these cataclysms are coming together. These are the complexities that I see, but he never addresses it. He just uses this
overpopulation,
this throwaway term, like no one wants to address the complexities. Well, okay, you got to come clean on that, because I'm very interested in the Muammar Gaddafi story, but I mean, come on, give me a better context. You got to tell your story better. So that, again, I feel like he overloads this movie so much that he can't simplify it. He can't make it. He can't describe what he was really getting at.
I don't think
I was frustrated. I got to say, I found the movie to be very edifying, but very frustrating, and his presentation, I mean, he certainly goes for the incendiary. He opens the movie where you see all this blood. There's been some kind of massacre that's occurred in this house.
And it's very particular shots that he loves using, which is like essentially the B-roll footage from news. Like the most classic Adam Curtis shot is just like a camera with a flashlight on it, shining light in a dark room,
and there's blood everywhere,
and it's a longer shot than you'd ever see produced in something.
Yeah.
And you're aware
there's
of
no
the person
people.
filming
There's
it.
no people. It's all aftermath. He's really into aftermath.
I think he's also to get to your point of like, okay, so everything's more complex. What does that mean? What's the complexity we're not getting? I think he's a problematicist. I think he's demonstrating the problem and is not trying to put forward a solution. He, on one hand, is showing that, okay, so let's take Gaddafi, all right? Mm-hmm. The simple story is he's a bad guy, he's the enemy of America. Then he became a good guy. Then he was a bad guy again. And all of those have politically useful purposes at those different stages of his existence.
And it's a perfect example of how American politicians, the CIA, whoever was pulling the strings behind this stuff, didn't know the fucking difference between Syria and Libya. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's insulting to anyone's intelligence. And what really,
but it worked. It
yeah.
achieved their ends. But I think his point would be in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the long term, there's collateral damage that is like that is horrifying. You know, and when you're ignoring the real roots of this like systemic violence in this area, you give rise to this segment, which is about suicide bombing, which he is presenting as an extremely modern and like novel concept. And if that's factually accurate, that's a really interesting portion.
That was one of my favorite segments of the movie when he calls it the human bomb, and he introduces the first suicide bombing that occurred in 1982, and how this became this method of terror, this very effective method of terrorism that now we're stuck with. The genie's out of the bottle, and it's not going to go away. And also, you know, this is what happens when you keep kicking the dog. Eventually, the dog is going to bite you. And so, my takeaway from this movie was about how incompetent and willfully culturally ignorant our American industrial military complex is, and how it's really all about just breaking shit so that we can then sell the contracts, buy the contracts to go in and pretend like we're fixing it, while in the meantime, we're really just killing more people and fucking more shit up so that those contracts never run out. And that's why 53% of our taxes goes to the military. And that's why we're trapped in this cycle of not only never-ending war, but exponentially increasing war, because it's the corporate model. Like every quarter has to always, profits always have to go up.
So that's a key thing that I think he's pointing to is let's say you have a very dreamlike vision of what politics is about and what political leaders do, and they defend a country, and maybe they reach out to help its allies militarily or politically, but you're interested in the good of the country. Well, if from that perspective you look at anything in the past 100 years, maybe World War II excluded, for the most part in Vietnam, in the Gulf, you have people motivated by that. Doesn't really make any sense. Like, why would you politically do this? Why would you sacrifice hundreds of thousands of your children? Why would you? It doesn't make any rational sense politically. So
I also wanted to give a shout out to Elon Musk, who's one of the people who has some pretty good ideas for solutions to our problems.
But you look at it and it's like, oh, so clearly you have corporate interests in it, okay? And we can, we were all like, during the Bush administration, they're just in it for the oil. But like, let's get specific. What is that relationship, and how has power shifted truly so that corporate interests are what is controlling our actions? And Adam Kurz is great at getting into that specific, not just saying like, oh no, it's the companies that run it. Like, who are the people and what are these relationships that are actually connecting these dots? And he makes it very much more human and almost like understandable. You see this like sick logic into how that's happening. And because when the banks refuse to buy those stocks of New York City and they force them to do those things, you kind of get it. You kind of like understand that little piece.
Sure,
but then that logic just continues.
That was a crisis decision. That was a moment. I mean, that's a classic corporate raider moment where the bank saw the opportunity and they took it.
And the banks have a value system which is different, and they have a stated value system that's different than the stated value system of politicians. Now there's crooked bankers, and there's crappy bankers, and there's crooked politicians, and there's crappy politicians, but they have different intents. But then when you look at the way that we're acting abroad, it is for maximizing the profit return on corporations for the most part. And so pinpointing exactly when that shift happened and the mechanics of that is really important and interesting. And I find it kind of inspiring because it's like once you start seeing those pieces and understanding that, then new ideas that understand that concept begin to work. So he critiques, when he's saying no one has ideas for a better vision, he's critiquing like Occupy, which is saying like, here are problems. These are problems. But like, I don't think you can deny, you know, and as someone who is like tangentially involved in the movement, there was a lot of discussion, but there was not any consensus on what steps to take and what a refined vision looks.
That's not true at all. And we see that
compared to like the civil rights movement.
Hang on. Just hear me out. And, you know, because the proof in the pudding was Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders led all, and this is the brilliant thing that the DNC and Hillary did. You know, they propped up their puppet rival Trump, and in the meantime, they had Bernie Sanders, who I'm sure they colluded with him all along. We all knew it was too good to be true. Like, how could this guy stand in his truth for 40 years and he's going to be, you know, the guy who leads us to everything great? And then he turned out to be the Pied Piper and ran us all off the Hillary Clinton trip. You know, it's not like Jill Stein doesn't represent all of the values and all of the hardcore ideas of the movement.
But I think like there are pragmatic realities of power, and so
nationalizing the banks would have been the first thing that they should have done.
But there's ideas and there's power, and a thing that Adam Curtis is pointing to is
that there's no one in power that has those ideas.
In power is the key. And where is power? And power is in the corporate hands.
Right.
So you have to be able to negotiate with that.
And that's where people like Elon Musk come into play, because his business is doing very well. They're in the black, and his plan for getting rid of, you know, all oil and coal is pretty stunning.
Yeah, so I think that's somewhat like in line with this is a political revolution, or let's just say like a massive shift in the way society works, is going to look different than it did in 1960. Like the civil rights movement truly was a people power movement that shifted the laws of this country and changed the lives of everybody.
Right, but let's look at what happened with that. You had Kent State, and you had everyone being assassinated. By the time they killed Martin Luther King, it was done. The 60s were over. Any hope was all gone.
But it started with
JFK, and then by the time you killed Martin Luther King, the movement was dead. It was dead.
But the civil rights movement was passed, is my point, is that it had a specific political agenda. It achieved that, and to varying degrees of success, you know, with
it was crushed is what happened.
It was passed.
It was crushed. What happened was the government brought out the guns, and this is where we are today, and this is what you see with like what's happening in North Dakota right now, where, you know, they've brought out all the big guns, all the big tanks, and they're taking these people away.
Right, but the civil rights movement was passed, is my point.
Was passed? What does that mean?
I'm sorry, the Equal Rights Amendment was passed. Like there was an amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which was the like.
But that didn't. Yeah, but come on, I didn't do shit. That's just lip service. I mean, we're seriously look at the prison system though. We are in a far worse state of affairs now than we were then.
Can I bring up someone who disagrees with you on that?
Who disagrees?
Yes, is Barack Obama. Like,
of course, Barack Obama, the biggest blowhard of them all.
I think it's.
I mean, if I was going to do my Barack Obama impression, I mean, that guy.
And please don't.
He literally puts so much breath. He is a blowhard. I mean, he is by definition a textbook example of a blowhard.
He talks like a lawyer.
He's so full of shit. Nothing he says has a grain of integrity.
As someone like, America is a very imperfect place. It's a very shitty place to be a black person. But it is better. But it is better. And there was benefits that were achieved through
what?
Through political action of individuals in the 1960s and 70s.
Oh, and so that's how we're killing. We've been systematically bumping off 1,100 black people a year.
I'm not gonna disagree with that. There's an equal percentage of American population.
And then we throw the rest in jail so they can make panties for Victoria's Secret.
There's an equal percentage in jail as were slaves. Like, it's or I think an equal number. It's
percentage, yeah.
But I think it's wrong to say that you couldn't achieve things and that things weren't achieved in the civil rights movement. But what Adam Curtis is pointing to is that there have been things that have shifted and that power is no longer in the hands of the government to give to you. That if people in Congress wanted to give you a constitutional amendment, they couldn't anymore, because where power is, and if you really want to understand how the game is played, it is talking about power and not so much about like ideas that we can all get behind.
Okay, so that brings us to the last chapter of the movie, which is A World Without Power.
Mm-hmm. So Putin comes up in an interesting way.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't know about this guy who's his like PR mastermind.
Uh-huh.
And you know, I think about like irony and the way that the internet deals with thinking metally, and you think that there's nothing that could be more meta than like a Reddit or like on 4chan where people are making jokes on jokes, but it really seems like Putin's PR guy has it figured out on another level, where he talks about how he funds both sides of the opposition. He funds the pro-Putin people. Right. He funds the anti-Putin people. So that creates, that's a bunch of chaos in the streets, and there's protests and there's riots. Oh my God. And so that distracts from what Putin is really doing.
What's the fracking movie that came out a few years ago? Remember that?
The fracking movie? I don't know.
There's a movie about fracking with too much beer now. But that's the moral of that story, is how they're playing both ends against the middle, and that's what we see.
But Putin's guy takes it to the next level, which is like, okay, so you want to distract what you're doing in the Kremlin, the creepy deals you're making, all your friends you're setting up. Okay, so you create all this chaos in the streets, you fund people, and then here's the real twist: you tell everyone you're doing it.
Right.
You reveal that you are funding everybody.
Well, that's what we're seeing with the WikiLeaks emails for Clinton. She doesn't really care. She's already won the election. It doesn't matter how many bad things come out. In fact, I think that, and we've got Trump setting the bar lower and lower. Right. At a certain point, you're going to have stories leaked that are worse than the crimes that the people are really committing, the politicians are really committing, because it really wasn't that. Then they can come and say, oh, it really wasn't that bad.
Well, this is what I see of, people talk about Trump's likely going to lose. We're recording this in the end of October, so we'll find out soon enough. But Trump is talking about setting
October 26th.
Trump is talking about setting up, I think it's the 27th, I'm not sure.
Is it?
Setting up a media empire, and it would be of this nature, I imagine, is of disinformation in a way that's, you think Fox News was bad,
right?
Of skewing things through a certain perspective, but what they did was they took facts and they put a certain kind of glasses on it, and they freaked out about it, and they came at it from their values and kind of saw what they wanted to see. Well, there's a whole other level of, it's like almost beyond yellow journalism of just, I heard it. Isn't that insane? It's true. And there's this really incredible unaccountability to real things. Like, I think most people...
Okay, so this is to me what hypernormalization is. He talks about how everyone's retreating. Mm-hmm. And I think that you're going to see more and more of this kind of activity. People are lost in their cell phones. They're lost in their world. And I saw something on Russia Today where they were saying that respect for police in America is at an all-time high. And I think they're confusing fear with respect.
Russia Today being the Kremlin-approved news agency.
No, see, that's the thing is...
Well, do you know or do you not know? Because
listen. Yeah, Kremlin approved or not approved. I mean, whoever, I don't care who signs the check in this regard. I don't know if you're familiar with Abby Martin. Abby Martin was on RT for a long time. But
isn't Larry King involved in it?
She puts Rachel Maddow to shame. I mean, Rachel Maddow is not fit to give Abby Martin a pedicure. So there's and RT I mean, I would say that between the Guardian and Russia Today, like those are the two main news sources that I read. I mean, they
But isn't this a great example?
I mean, they're astronomically above and beyond any news outlet in America.
But if Russia Today is funded by the Kremlin and you're getting just enough of stuff that is compelling and you believe in is stuff that you have wanted to hear, then when they give you the thing that's entirely full of shit that's being fed to you,
and this is
this is the thing.
Well, you have to read between the lines in any news that you ever look at. You have to read between the lines.
But
I mean, if you don't, and this is, and this,
but at what point?
Let me hang on, because this is the thing. This is like one of the problems that I have with Adam Curtis's premise, because he goes after the free thinkers and he goes after the punk rockers. And I mean, I grew up in that era, so I'm really partial to it. And I have to say, I would not be half of the free thinker that I am if it had not been for people like Lou Reed, Patti Smith, Iggy Pop, The Clash. I mean, I knew better than, to ever have anything to do with the military just because I listened to so many hours of The Clash. I mean, career opportunity, the one that never knocks. You know what you're getting.
I think what he's saying, though, is that though it may enlighten you ideologically, there's the type of radical, I want to call it entertainment, the type of radical music and art that was coming out stopped giving you any skills on actually making change.
See, I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think that between Elvis Costello and Iggy Pop, I think that you know everything that you need to know about how to use your mind and your body.
If you want
and your body.
If you want to change the world right now, you need to go to business school or law school.
Well, there is no changing the world. I mean, this whole idea, it's not like one car. Listen. It's not like the traffic. You saw this. I don't know if you saw this traffic study. How one car can free up a traffic jam. Like it could be like a 5-mile long traffic jam on the freeway, and if just one car lays back and lets cars go in front of him, pretty soon you get a flow, and the whole artery will open up. That's not this. That's not what this is doing. There is no way in today's world for a citizen, just somebody, nobody.
Sure.
Now, if you're Elon Musk, different story.
I think we're agreeing here he's drawing this connection between the dropout punk rock culture and people retreating into their cell phones. And
the thing that he said about punk rock was that they looked at everything. He didn't. Ironically, they chose to stand back and witness all of the social destruction, political destruction, with a sardonic, ironic, jaundiced eye. And I'll buy that, blank generation. I belong to the blank generation, and I can take it or leave it each time. And that's another one. I mean, blank generation, Richard Hell, took that from the Beatniks. And that in itself, that stand, that feeds into like Elvis Costello's thing about like always have your fuck you money, which means I have enough money in my pocket that if for me to have any business dealing with you or not, I can tell you to fuck off at any moment because I don't need you. So,
but isn't that the best attitude for a society to have so that the people in power can do what they want? Where there's not a social accountability, there is not things are going awry. Here's how we're going to have to get these bills passed. We're going to have to curtail.
And here's why that's not, because in order to break that system, it has to break from within. And so, you see things like Serpico back in the day, telling everything about the corruption in the New York City Police Department. You end up with more Snowdens, more Serpicos, as a result of people like Patti Smith and Iggy Pop. So I say Adam Curtis is completely off base going after, this thing that, people are retreating. Well, no, there's a difference between retreating and waiting for your moment. Because if you're the guy working at IBM and you decide one day that you're gonna stay till 10 at night and wait till the janitor leaves and pull a plug. See, you've done the right thing. So that's where the change is going to come from, is from within. But if you don't have people who have that steely, raw power mentality of Iggy Pop, that's not going to happen. So I think Curtis is I think that there's a lot of stuff that is flawed in his thinking, and you learn it all in the beginning in his premise. Because, if you want me to get on the train, if you want me to get on your train and go for the ride, you cannot tell me that no one has any vision of a different or better kind of future. That's just wrong.
I think he's speaking in broad terms.
Well, he certainly is. He certainly is.
I think it's for the sake of. It like sounds rhetorically true to me. There is not a coherent vision of a tomorrow. Yes, there are people.
Well, Elon Musk seems to have one.
Yes, there are individuals that have specific ideas. But if you look at other crisis periods where we transcended and made a difference as groups of people, we were able to unify around like certain ideas and to achieve particular ends. And you know what? And maybe that's in retrospect, where you say like, well, they got that amendment passed, and that's what everyone must have been aiming towards. So maybe that's hindsight being 2020. But I think everyone agrees. That things are politically really fucked up in this country and in many countries, and that political power is not being wielded by people who deserve to have it. But how do you...
Well, it never has been.
Yeah, that's true.
So,
It's true, but there is...
We're moving towards a post-political society, and if you want
what does that mean though? Is that a good thing, or is that just a plutocracy to another degree?
You keep going into this thing about like what's good and what's bad. There's good and bad in everything. It's impossible to have anything that's not good and bad.
Yeah, but you have to make choices, and you have to weigh out what is good and what is bad to quantities. You have to say like, we want this more than that.
I mean, who knows? 2016 might be the last election we'll ever see in this country. This could be the end of all politics, because now the curtain is being pulled back thanks to people like Edward Snowden and WikiLeaks and Julian Assange. The curtain is being pulled back on everything. People are seeing the guy behind the curtain. They're getting to read his medical report and find out how many hookers he slept with and how many years he's had syphilis and how many people he gave syphilis to. I mean, it goes on. And at a certain point, the system, because there's no integrity, there's not one, it's just like Obama. I mean, everyone had all this great, hope for change, la, la, la. And look at it now. I mean, you've had Obamacare, you've had prescription drugs go up 500 or 1,000% as a result of Obamacare.
Yeah, 22 million more people insured, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, and now they're raising the whatever it is.
Well, first of all,
penalty if you're not insured.
It is young people's fault. I'll fall on the sword on this.
It's not young people's fault. Also, what's with all this like faulting, like trying to pin blame? Let's not do that. That's not what it's about, because there's only a few people. Most of them CEOs and members of the World Bank who are really making the big decisions, and that's why we're moving towards a post-political world. I mean, the Pentagon doesn't do anything anymore.
So I think that's kind of the point too. Is when power shifts,
we don't even have an army anymore. It's all privatized.
So what do you do? I mean, when power shifts out of the range of you being able to vote to affect any change,
you never could. You never could. It was always an illusion. So here's what I'm driving at, is that, we really could have a democracy. We really could have a social media driven democracy. It would be very ugly and very messy, because democracy, we live under this illusion of democracy, but there's no such thing. We don't have. Well, it would be like calling a rock a piece of bread.
I think what's
we have the rock. We don't have the bread.
What's interesting about democracy is I think you see it exercised only, and you really prove its existence when really shitty decisions are made, like Brexit, like the potential of electing Donald Trump.
Okay, now, but you realize, of course, that things like Brexit and Donald Trump were all inevitable because you had all of these forces that pushed people into this corner where, they rejected it. And that's going to happen. There's going to be a lot of
sure, but
this is the hell to pay. This is what happens when you keep pushing people and pushing people off the edge. People finally somehow revolt. In the old days, in 1900, it was with pitchforks. Now, I mean, I don't know what you use because you're going up against a SWAT team. So I don't know I don't know how it's going to happen. It's going to have to be the guys in the SWAT team who turn on whoever. I don't know how that goes.
So,
but it's ugly. I do know that. There's a lot of blood going to be spilled.
And talking about us living in different universes and this shift in what is
what's real. I mean,
what is seen as what's real is
the whole movie is about how we don't live in reality.
So here's the thing that's not being talked about is weirdly in this extreme fact checking of this election, I think Hillary Clinton is being pushed and is sort of reacting accordingly to saying very specifically factual things. There's this new obsession. I mean, it's not new, but there is a heightened obsession with being factually accurate. And so with Donald Trump saying things that are just incredibly untrue, I think she is attempting to demonstrate that she's very factually accurate, and I'm becoming skeptical of that being extremely meaningful. Like it is, at the end of the day, it just comes to having a very good Google search.
Well, and also how well, how good a liar.
What does it mean?
How good a liar are you? I mean, it's all the nature of rhetoric and debate. And both of these people, by the way, are just horrible debaters.
They're both very unimpressive debaters.
So pathetic. I mean, they're below amateur level.
I do think that she would have it handed to her by almost any of the other
you can accomplish
17 Republican candidates.
Anything that you want with words. We know this. Language is a very malleable thing, and you can win any debate with facts or lies. And if I keep telling you something enough, you're going to believe it. And I have to. This is a little anecdote that I had when I was a kid. I was hanging out with my buddy Tyrone Corbett from the Hood. I lived on the good side of Broad Street. He lived on the bad side of Broad Street. Needless to say, Tyrone was black. And one day, somehow he got my sunglasses, and he had my sunglasses on. And he's like, "No, man, these are my glasses." And I said, "No, come on, give me my glasses. These are my glasses." And we went just like back and forth like this. And I have to say, after about 20 minutes, I started to think, maybe those really are his sunglasses. And that was an important lesson for me because, of course, they were my sunglasses. But just because he would not stop. He just kept saying it over and over and over again. And anything that somebody tells you enough, it doesn't even take that long. You'll just start to believe.
I'm not sure how important facts are anymore.
I don't, and I think, and the whole thing with hypernormalization, I think, is about how everyone is retreating, and we could end up looking like, I don't know, Berlin in the 30s, where no one wants to go out of their house anymore because there's just too much fear that they're going to get bombed or shot or And
it is interesting that it's
attacked.
It's lining up very perfectly with virtual reality, augmented reality, giving us a level of escapism it's going to be physiologically troubling for a while. We really can.
I think it's interesting that he talked about LSD, and he talked about how the internet was going to be this freeing thing where people could exist on a different plane. And I've found myself in recent weeks pulling away more and more from my computer and pulling away from my cell phone more. And not that I'm ever on my cell phone very much, but my computer, yes. But because it's this alternate reality where people can feel like they're engaged and they're doing something, when in reality you're not engaged at all. Going back and forth with people on Twitter or Facebook is not a human interaction. What we're doing here, talking across the table, that's human interaction.
And one thing that comes from and there's a sort of mathematics to this that I think he gets across precisely, is when your experiences are driven by maximizing the profits of certain people, when people are making money by...
I like the double entendre of profits there.
when people are making money by you staying online, they're not going to show you things you don't like. They're not going to show you a version of reality that maybe it'll freak you out, but whatever it does, it keeps you there.
Well, or if it does, it challenges you in a way that you can you
want to engage.
You can respond in a knee-jerk manner.
However you respond,
Yeah.
you're gonna see more ads.
Right.
And
That's true.
the fact that our every waking moment of consciousness that we spend online is motivated by maximizing profits is skewing reality in a way that, I mean, like we've never fully known the truth. We've always been misled. If it bleeds, it leads has been the motto of newspapers since the beginning of time, but never has so many waking moments of our lives been driven by and controlled by that motive, and it can only really fuck us up.
I agree. Everyone get off social media. It ruins people's lives.
Turn off this podcast before it started.
Nah, we're not. This is different. This is human interaction.
If you have
and you don't have to listen to it on Facebook.
If you're so anyway, if you're on an iPhone, like and subscribe on the iTunes podcasts. If you have SoundCloud, please just follow us. Stitcher for all of our Android users out there. Where else are we, Cole? We're on Facebook, right?
Well, we're on colesmithy.com.
We're on colesmithy.com. We're in a forthcoming, I'll tell you more about it, but Buster.fm is a podcast network we're soon to be a part of, which is very exciting. Also on there is my other podcast, Cat Talk.
Cat Talk.
With some great New York City alt comedians. We're all in New York and comedy braving the storm, which is the terribleness of reality, and just improving our way into a better state of mind.
I also want to shout out to our friends who've been listening to us in the United Kingdom, Australia, Egypt, Canada, the Russian Federation, France, and Hungary. Thanks, you guys, for listening to us. I hope that everybody continues to share our stuff and talk about it, and that you get something out of this.
I think your little sign-off motto is hyper appropriate tonight.
Remember to turn your cell phones off when you're walking, driving, or watching a movie.
Or just most times, really.
Hey, should we talk about Armand White?
Oh yeah, let's hype a show coming up.
We got a really tasty upcoming show for you guys. We're gonna have Armand White, and we're gonna talk about Moonlight, and I think we'll probably spend at least a couple of minutes on Toy Story 3.
There is a very important connection that Cole and Armand have, and I'll tell you, the Pixar Corporation loves them, and we're gonna talk all about what they have in common on that subject.
Thanks for listening, everyone. We really appreciate it.